And we're back. Hello and welcome to the Hypertrophy Odyssey, chapter 56. It is Monday, aka the Vulcan Raven workout, upper body. Looking forward to it. Upper body's feeling great. It is the day after the time skip forward, so it's an hour later than it normally is, but not really. I have to actually change the clock in my car. I just realized that right now. But anyways, it is Monday. Feeling good. It is super fucking cold outside, so I had to bring out the huge jacket again, which is weird because it's March. Lousy smarch weather. Anyways, besides that, feeling good. Looking forward to this. And today we can get back to our regularly scheduled talking about random stuff. I think today's random stuff was what last video's was supposed to be, which it was unfortunately pushed back because of very sad news. So there was that. But now it is today, and today we will be discussing bodybuilder diets and why half of them are bullshit. First, I like to think back to those videos of watching bodybuilders buy all of their groceries. A lot of the time they're buying exuberant amounts of meats, eggs, and milk, and with some other random sweet stuff, when in reality, out of all of those things, the milk and the eggs are fine, but all the other sweets and stuff are usually not fine. And for some reason, and this was something that I've noticed, there's a reason for it. It took me a while to realize why, but a lot of those bodybuilding diets always try to like cut out fats and stuff like that, which is, if you are a normal person, stupid. You need fats if you're a normal person. But for them, most of the time, if they're on an exogenous hormone or 2 or 7, they are most likely getting the fat from those things, or they don't necessarily need fat because hormones being regulated through the drugs, which is ridiculous. And I feel like a lot of them don't really even say that because they don't even realize it. It's funny how sometimes you can think you're doing so much and not really have reasons as to why you're doing it, and then kind of have a weak spot in your knowledge of what's going on. So yeah, but basically the reason why they don't have fats in their diet is because they don't necessarily need fat. Fats are used in your body, regulation of like hormones and other things like that as well. They are an essential part to the diet. You need all three in moderation, depending on which one your body gravitates towards most. There are some people that are carb heavy or carb dominant who can eat some protein but not excessive amounts, and there are other people who are protein heavy. They need a lot of meats, and then they don't necessarily need that much carbs. So it all just depends. It depends on the person. It's more dependent on your ancestry. Just look at where you're from and or what your parents used to eat and kind of base it off of that, you know, and then also just base it off of your own personal experience, you know, experiment around with your body. But the bodybuilder diet I always find ridiculous because they always do extreme amounts of protein, which is fine to err on the side of high protein, but these people will be doing like excessive amounts of egg whites, like, you know, a whole carton for breakfast or some shit like that. And it's just like, you don't need that much. Like, you don't need these like double the body weight that I am right now, you know, that amount of protein. That's just frankly retarded. It's crazy because then you get people that try to like replicate these things that are like, oh yeah, let me try to do this exactly like they do it, when in reality they don't realize that the drugs will take care of a lot of it. Plus, for some reason, the same people that like to do these weird like diets where they have like a shit ton of food at like periodically throughout the day, also for some reason don't know what salt, pepper, onion powder, and or Old Bay seasoning are. For some reason, a seasoning is just thrown out the window for these guys because they have to be somewhat hardcore, but that makes absolutely zero sense. And then you also get them also being the types of people that will end up eating fucking like tubs of ice cream because they can, and they can because the drugs will take care of it. Like, you know, at the end of the day, yeah, they have to diet and all that other jazz, but there is some level to it where they don't have to worry about what they're eating per se, because the drugs will kind of take care of it, so they don't have to worry about it as much. They also are probably, let's be real here, too reliant on the drugs so that they can't actually know what the hell is good for them or not. Or, you know, the entire idea of what do you mean it's not normal to immediately have to take a dump after every single meal immediately after, like the moment after I eat? What do you mean explosive diarrhea isn't normal? You know what I mean? Things like that, where people will not realize that certain aspects of their food consumption, both going in and out, aren't normal technically. You know, they're like, oh, that is fascinating to me personally. That isn't even just a bodybuilder diet thing. That's just a general diet thing people don't realize, like, oh, I guess this food isn't good for me, you know? They like don't put two and two together, you know? It's interesting. My favorite personally is, man, I feel terrible, weak, depressed, and filled with anxiety and just terrible. Well, I'm gonna continue this vegan diet. 1 + 1 is not equaling 2 at all, but it's somehow going into a different direction in its entirety. All right, it is astonishing, like the fact that people put so little onto the rest of their body and what they put in their stomach. I'm not gonna say that I'm a saint on this, because I will be the occasional asshole about it, but still, even I'm like, no, when I eat bad, I'm going to feel bad. I already know this intuitively, but for some reason people don't see that intuitively. It's just insane to me. That is crazy. But with these big bodybuilders, my main gripe with them is that they make these giant ass videos buying all this bullshit, when in reality you're making a diet for a point, like 0.00001% of the population realistically, and two, there is no nutritional value. They for some reason use a lot of sweeteners and all that other jazz. Instead of eating regular ass food, they make weird ass food, or like food, like I said earlier, with absolute zero spice, and vegetables for some reason, except for broccoli is the only exception, just gets forgotten. I'm guilty of that myself, I can't even lie, but at least I try to include vegetables whenever I can, you know? Try is the main part. But it's just fascinating generally that this perpetuation of the same diets over and over again, you know, the fact that chicken, broccoli, and rice is such a fucking meme. It's kind of insane. And I'm not shitting on chicken, broccoli, and rice, because it's actually pretty decent. But even then, I feel like it's been ruined because of people like that. So we'll talk more about it on the inside. Alright, so today we start off with dips. I felt relatively good on these, although when looking outside I was looking straight into the sun, so that was a little bit of a treat, you know, nothing too crazy though, whatever, you know, a little bit of sun in the eye doesn't hurt anybody, right? But to get back to the main subject matter at hand here, I wanted to talk a little bit about what bothers me most about this entire bodybuilder diet is the fact that it is meant to play up what is needed to grow. You have to eat big to get big, all that other jazz, but in reality you don't have to eat that much in order to get big. It's not that much. It is a lot less than people would expect, honestly. Side note, I have to mention this. I got rid of these dumbbell skull crushers because they messed up my triceps once, so I decided to add these. I saw Basement Bodybuilding doing them, and I did them the other day just like as a random, just to see what they felt like, and they felt great. So these are great. I've added them to the list of exercises, and they feel really good. Really like them a lot. They don't fuck up my elbows. So we'll see how it is when we add weight, but so far, so good. So anyways, I think the other part of it is that there is like a weird perpetuation of the same old stereotypes that have been around for such a long time that we know doesn't really matter per se. Like, you know, the entire meal frequency, it just isn't the end all be all. Yeah, I don't have to eat every 3 hours, shit like that. It has to be chicken, rice, and broccoli. Spices will add salt to your system so you'll retain too much water or some random crap like that, which I don't understand. I really don't understand it. I don't get it. I really hate that entire thing. Personally, I find it kind of baffling that people still listen to this advice and or just watch these videos where it's like I said, I'll say it again later, but they're not doing anything special. They're just buying a crap ton of food and realistically overbuying food and also overeating realistically. You don't need an extreme or exorbitant amount of protein in order to maintain muscle mass. It actually doesn't take that much. And like I will say later, but I think the biggest thing about it that pisses me off is the elephant in the room being the steroids that a majority of them are on that will take care of the hormones parts that fats take care of, which is important for a lot of people. People don't realize that fats are useful in their diet because they do regulate hormones, and that is a very important and key factor. For them, for particularly bodybuilders who are using, the drugs, they don't necessarily need that because they are getting the hormones from the outside source, so it doesn't even matter per se. Like, people will follow these diets like to a T and then be like, man, I feel terrible afterwards. Well, of course, you're eating like 5,000 calories in a day when you weigh 150 pounds, you know what I mean? And with no fat too, so it is kind of wild. I think there is
is something about the lack of self-experimentation, I would say, about this that also gets me, because people won't experiment with their own diet. You know what I mean? Like, they'll just kind of just go at it and see what other people do and copy it without even doing their own stuff, you know? It sucks, because realistically, nobody's really gonna know what you're like or what your body responds to. Only you can know that, you know? But I've learned my lesson on a lot of different foods and food varieties and things like that. There are certain foods that just do not agree with my stomach at all whatsoever. For example, corn oil. I'm not a big fan of corn oil and or margarine. I know that they make my stomach hurt and I just feel terrible after eating them. There are a lot of other cases where, like, instant foods also make me feel terrible as well. I know that if I eat too much meat, I will start getting the meat sweats. You know, that's something that people don't realize is also a thing, or they'll be like, man, I'm so sweaty for absolutely zero reason. Yeah, it's quite astonishing. All right, so I have to mention this before I continue back into the conversation. So as you can kind of see here, I have a 5 attached. This is the first set I did of these. I kind of didn't end up doing any more sets of these afterwards. I got 2 good sets and then 2 shitty sets, as the 5 kept hitting the stack, so it would fall off in the middle of it. So I couldn't only get really 2 good sets of this, which is super annoying. So I have to buy the thing in order to hold the weight to make this possible. It's super fucking annoying. But anyways, back to the main subject. Diet in general is super subjective. So I feel like that's the issue, and these people become very dogmatic with their entire identity being wrapped up in their diets, particularly bodybuilders. You know, you gotta have the tub, inner workout meal, their cheat meal, their go-to cheat meal, like things like that. And it's such a little factor in what creates a good physique and or just generally, you know, a healthy bodied person is another thing too. I will briefly mention this later, but this isn't me shitting on any particular diet, I want to say. Like, the bodybuilder diet is what I'm talking about right now, but that's just a general catch-all term that I'm using here. I don't want you to think I'm shitting on something like a specific diet, or, for example, like keto or paleo or vegan. Although vegan, there are some issues, but that's just a whole other discussion on its own topic. But even then, still, I'm not shitting on those particular ones, because diets, in theory, will work regardless of what's happening. It just depends on the person. Like I said earlier, diet is so super subjective, dependent on the person, where some diets will just work immediately for some people and some diets won't work for people at all. Now, if I try to eat 6 times a day, I would want to end everything. If I were to eat once a day, I would want to end everything. I know exactly what my body's like and what I need to either cut and or grow. I don't need too many crazy things. Literally, if I want to cut, I go to potatoes. If I want to bulk, I want to go to rice. That's it. Those are the 2 things. And I feel like the main lesson about this is to play around with your diet and figure out what foods agree with you and what foods don't. Don't be afraid to be your own scientist, but actually pay attention to what's going on. Because if you find that after you eat a certain amounts of cheese, you always fart up a storm, then stop eating the cheese, you know? Be the scientist that you should be for your own body, and then figure it all out, so that way you're better off and can make your body into the machine that it was meant to be, and not just clog it with bullshit that's just gonna make things worse for yourself, you know? So pay attention to it. Experiment around.
I want chicken cooked in no oil, broccoli cooked in no oil, and white rice. That's it. Now I want 2 of them. And we're back. Hello and welcome to the workout debriefing. Exercises skipped? None. Exercises not filmed? None. Almost had to skip lat pull down because it kept being packed, but ended up not being packed for a little bit, so then I ended up doing it. But besides that, everything's feeling good. I'm feeling very tired, but it is what it is. So to go back a little bit and talk about the bodybuilder diet, the reason why I think this pisses me off more than anything is because of the over emphasis on the diet that a lot of bodybuilders put on there. And I'm talking about mostly the enhanced guys. They'll say like, oh yeah, you know, you gotta eat all the time, you gotta do all this shit, you gotta do that. When in reality, the diet is maybe 15 to 20% of everything that happens, you know, and they want to say it's like half of what they do. And that's where the crock of horse shit comes in, because I feel like most of the time, one, they are ignoring the elephant in the room, aka hormones that they're taking. They ignore that little tiny bit. They always ignore it for some fucking reason. They have a tendency to downplay the actual work that they do at the gym, because, and I feel like subconsciously it's because they know that realistically whatever they do, they just have to up the dose in order to keep going. And that's the thing, is that they will emphasize shit that doesn't necessarily matter and de-emphasize things that are actually working, that are doing the work for them, and de-emphasize the thing that you can probably do to work for you, which is the workouts, aka the splits and all that other jazz and the programming. But they will downplay that because they'll say anything works. And yes, well, to some degree, yes, anything fucking works. There is a caveat to that, where if you aren't taking hormones, not everything fucking works, and you have to start thinking about it after a while, because it'll work at the beginning and then you'll reach a plateau and then you're fucked beyond belief. If they reach a plateau, they could just up the fucking dose and call it a day, which is something that most people shouldn't do, and that's asinine thing to do and way to solve that issue. But that's why I think the entire bodybuilding diet is such a fucking joke. Whenever I see those videos pop up on my feed, I just laugh and I'm like, all right, do not recommend to me again. Because it's like, what is the point of watching these? At least a mukbang thing, it's like you can understand that they're like eating a fuck ton, and we'll do an entire video about that. But even from this, it's just they're just buying a bunch of groceries. It's like you don't even get like the satisfaction of buying something cool. It's fucking eggs. Like, you know what I mean? And for some reason they go to grocery stores instead of going to wholesale markets like Costco and Sam's Club, which is also baffling. Makes you really think that they probably aren't the brightest bulb in the room, but you know, can't be really too mean nowadays, so, you know, just saying. But anyways, I think that's the main thing. It's just the overemphasis by others about it, downplaying the real shit that actually works and the shit that they do that is working for them, aka the drugs. That's just me personally, and I think just seeing it always just pisses me off, and every time, annoyed. Anyways, tell me what you think in the comments below. I would love to hear. This isn't a bashing on particular diets. I want to say that because like I have nothing against keto or anything else. We'll do videos on those because they are completely different than what I'm describing, because what they do is like meal prep, all that other jazz. Well, like nothing wrong with meal prepping, but like eating every 2 hours, all that bullshit. But I've probably already talked about that in the voiceover. But anyways, tell me what you think in the comments below. I would love to hear your opinions and thoughts on these types of subjects, because for me personally, these are the types of things that piss me off, but that's just me. I try not to get too pissed off, but then again, I tend to think more clear when I get pissed off, so it happens to work out. But anyways, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. I will see you on the next one. Please drop a like, comment, and subscribe. I will see you on the next one. Peace.